And I'm happy to introduce Erin Rowe, who holds 6 mediation certificates. She's mediated over 3,000 cases over 40 years and is a retired real estate broker and lawyer. And she's going to be talking to you today about a subject she's been working with for years and years and is very expert at. Erin, it's all yours.
Thank you, Jane. Um, I'm so delighted. See, we've got 40 people here. I feel very happy about that, and many people I know, and I'm really happy to see you and be here. Oh, Mandy. What we're talking about today, this is going to be a basics, and we're talking about Marshall Rosenberg's, what he calls nonviolent communication. Here is a picture of my very dog-eared copy. No offense. But he's written several of them. Okay, Lowell's got the same book. So that's what it's based on. It can also be called compassionate communication. And the most recent term I heard that I've been using, which I prefer, is conscious communication. I'll start with a quote. I love these quotes. The single biggest problem, I'm sorry, this is from George Bernard Shaw. The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. So a very simple way of looking at, if you want to call it nonviolent communication, a very, very simple, this is me, this is not Marshall. The way I boil it down is our habitual way of talking is like that. The finger's always pointed. You're late. You made me feel bad. I need you to do this. You better do this. So the nonviolent change is turn it around. I'm noticing this. This is the way I'm feeling. I can tell you about me, and here's what I want, because that's all I know in this world is I am a perceptual machine. I don't know anything about you or anyone outside of me. All I know is this input that I'm getting. So that's all I can tell you about. That's all I can be radically honest about is me. So the big change is instead of pointing out, we're pointing in. Why do we bother to do this? Okay. The intention is, okay, sorry. Marshall has a 4-part protocol for both listening and expressing oneself. And we'll go through those, we'll break those down, and please feel free to ask any questions you want along the way. And he will teach us to this protocol, but it doesn't even matter if you talk, because the whole thing is the intention. It's the changing from intention from blame to self-awareness and to getting all of our needs met. So as human beings, we are completely ruled by our needs. Everything that everyone is doing all the time is an attempt to meet their needs. But what we want to do generally is to tell about ourselves, ask about others. The opposite of what we do. We always tell other people about what they're doing, you're doing it wrong, and when we don't reveal anything about ourselves, like, I don't know, what do I feel? I don't know. Well, because we don't know. We're actually really checked out from ourselves, which is one of the main intentions of NVC, nonviolent communication, is to get in touch with ourselves, because it's asking us to focus for a minute. What am I feeling? What am I needing? And this is often enough to resolve a conflict. It's just to get in touch with our own, what we're needing and feeling. And again, we're going to go through this process, but if your intention is to meet your needs and also to value the other person's needs, and there can be negotiation there, but you're not overpowering, then that's NVC. It's just the intention to get your needs met, and also with the intention to respect the other person's needs and work out a good solution that works for everybody, a win-win. Okay. Does it work? Yeah, that's the intro. Okay, okay, so if your intention is to make something, people say, oh, does it work? Does it work? If your intention is to change someone's behavior, it's not going to work. If your intention is to get your needs met and the other person's needs met, you're number one, they're the second. Your needs take priority. But we also do want to respect the other person's needs too, because if we don't, nothing's going to work. Okay. Oh, I love this. Okay, so anything to say before we start?
You're doing this wrong. And you're doing this wrong. Well, because we do that when I am.
Erin, you're muted.
Sure enough, sorry. Okay, the first part is, again, yeah, Zoom is just possessed. So the first part is observation. So when we're saying, oh, gee, honey, so an observation is what a video camera would capture. So if you come into the room and you say, it is something that your senses tell you, like, oh, I see that bill is still on the table. I see that bill is on the table. It's not, you're late, honey, and you didn't pay the bill, did you? So it's a, it has to be, it's totally neutral. And just, yeah, it's totally neutral, something that a video camera, with no judgment and no evaluation. For example, if someone shows up at 8 o'clock, a video camera wouldn't say, oh, you're late, honey. It would have said, it would say, oh, it's, I notice you're here at 8. So it's completely neutral. Excuse me. And it is based on a sense like, oh, I'm hearing this, I understand this, I'm understanding this, I'm getting this, is this correct? And the purpose of stating the observation is so that you can get on the same page. So you're on the same page as the person. Like, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about what you said yesterday? Are you talking about what I'm eating today? So that is a good purpose for the observation. Okay. And the second thing is feelings. So we state what we're feeling. I feel this, or you can say, instead of I feel, you can say, I'm angry or I'm happy. Now, what we want to distinguish a feeling from is a thought. We typically, habitually say, I feel this, and then we will add a thought. And if you use the word like after feel, what comes afterward will certainly be a thought. I feel like you're trying to manipulate me. That's not a feeling. Oh, you know what? I wonder if I could get this. So anyway, after the word feeling, it has to be a feeling, like an actual feeling, happy, sad, mad, glad. Now, speaking of that, I would like to try to screen share, if I may. Not you, sorry, not you. Here. Okay, let me screen share. There it is. Okay, can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, great. The reason I have this up here is that it's very hard for people to know what they're feeling. We're checked out, we're distracted, and we're doing other things, and we often are not aware of how we're feeling. So I like to have this chart right in front of me. It's like, wow, yeah, it's a really good tool, and it really helps, and we often really need it. Okay, I would not know how to send this, but anyway, so that's that. Okay, we can move back to this. So the feelings, it helps to know what you're feeling. And it also helps to listen for other people's feelings. Rosenberg says that the point is, the compassion part is focusing on the feelings and the needs, both yours and the other person's. Okay, so we were on feelings, and that is to be distinguished from thoughts or judgment, which we're really habitually do. And there's another way people go, it's not a real feeling. It's a passive blame bomb, they call it. So I feel like you're manipulating me, or I feel judged. I feel excluded. It's this real passive, excluded by, So anyway, so we want to avoid that also. So when we say feeling, go right to a feeling: happy, sad, mad, glad. Okay, next one is need. Now this is kind of a big one because, excuse me. This is another hard one. Needs are even harder than feelings. And I don't have a decent chart up for needs. But the reason we have a hard time saying what we're needing is that this is just slammed out of us from childhood. for reasons like, well, for girls, girls are supposed to be caretakers. You have children and you have a husband, and it's your job to take care of them. And if you just talk about what you're needing, how selfish is that? Um, yeah, so you shouldn't. And a man having a need, how weak, what a wuss you are to have needs. Can't believe that. So we have these stamped out of us. We often don't know what we're needing. And what I like to say is, uh, instead of saying I'm needing this, it's so hard for us to do that, that I like to just ratchet it down again. And I rather say, I'd prefer this, or, oh, that would be fun. I would enjoy that, or that would feel good to me, instead of I need. So soften that in any way that it makes it easier for you to say what you're needing. And also we want to, when we're listening to people, we want to focus on what they're needing, or what would you prefer? Where would you like to go? What would you prefer? What would feel good to you? So if we focus on that, that we always want to know what our friends and people we're with are needing and wanting. But we're so very, very hesitant to say it, even though everyone wants to know. Okay, now the other thing is, when I'm needing something, you need to own your need. It is my need. It is my responsibility to get my needs met. It's not yours. It's not your responsibility to know them. And it's my responsibility to get them met and to know what they are and to let you know. Nobody's psychic. So say, for example, what I mean by owning it is, say, for example, you're getting panhandled. And some guy comes up and says, hey, I need $1. And you say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not willing to do that, or whatever. And so you go away. Does that panhandler still need $1? Or since you've gone, does the need go away? No, the panhandler still needs $1, and they own it. So that need stays with you. That was just an illustration to realize that our needs come with us, and it's our responsibility to get them met. And another person can choose to meet them, and hopefully, if they do so, they will do it and they will get the same pleasure that a child gets when it feeds a duck, to meet your needs. It should be pleasant. And if it's not pleasant to meet someone's need, don't do it, because you know what they say is no good deed goes unpunished, and that's true. I find that when you try to do something that you resent, it just goes south so fast. It really doesn't work. Anyway, okay, so again, instead of saying, I need you to give me $1, I need you to be quiet now, I need you to go do this. It's not you. I need peace and quiet and I need $1, but it's not you. So anyway, so own the need, keep the need with you, it's yours. Okay, and the last segment of this is a request. Now the request is linked directly to the need. So the request is one specific, clear ask, clear, specific, small, one sentence. It's got to be doable right now. And there are two kinds of requests. One of them is a connecting request, which is kind of a clarification. Did you hear me say that? Or how did that sound to you? Or you can also ask, what did you hear me say? Or when I'm hearing you say that, it's da 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 da. So it has to be done right now. Or what did you hear? What did you understand when I told you that? Because I need clarity. So I'm feeling confused. I'm needing clarity. So you go from your need to the request. It's connected. And then you craft your request from that. Okay, doable right now. All right. Any comments on that so far?
I need clarity on that. I'm trying to follow that thought. I caught the one simple sentence, and I oftentimes say way too much information to get to the what I need, what I'm requesting. But once I do that, if there's no response, I don't know the proper way of saying, did you hear me, without upsetting him.
Okay.
Without You know what I
Um,
mean?
I'm going to, I'm going to ask you some questions. I'm really glad you brought that up, but I'm going to have to clarify that myself. Um,
Okay.
what you brought up is a great awareness to have, that you'll sometimes give so much information that the listener gets lost and doesn't know how to
Right.
focus on exactly what you want to know. I had this fantastic mediation once, which exactly that was going on. There was a tenant, it was a landlord tenant, it was in LA a long time ago, and the tenant would ask a question and then have it pour an avalanche of words after it. So no one even knows what he was asking. And as a result, he never got any answers.
Right.
And what he was really asking is, I think he was asking for some repairs in the apartment. And so what I said was, I asked him to have one sentence, one clear, doable sentence that you can do right now, that can be answered right now. And then I said, stop. And I wouldn't let him say anything afterwards. And then the landlord said, no. So at least he had his answer.
Right. Right.
Okay. So, but Mandy, let's go through and can we just go through an example maybe? So do you ask for something and then you put a lot more words after? Is that what happens?
I have two people, my partner and my mother with Alzheimer's, and both of them, and the partner has a maybe attention deficit, but we've loved each other 38 years, and he's used to tuning me out because I talk too much. I'm
Ah,
bipolar, and the more stressed I get, the more I talk. So here I am trying to communicate something, and he either hears me or not, and sometimes he'll say, I'm sorry, what? And
mm,
that just gets me so upset because I've just poured my soul into this little paragraph, which should have been one complete, short, answerable sentence.
what
And
keeps you
I've
from
had some
doing that?
Alzheimer training and recognizing with my mom, I can come in and lead with, I'm going to have something picked up. Something's being delivered today. I'm going into my Zoom meeting. So can you listen for the door? And she decided to move into the living room to be closer to the door. So we communicated today on that one. And but
Mm,
sometimes I lose her, and that's just the nature of Alzheimer's too. I can
mhm,
I don't I have to learn to let that one go, whatever it is. And
mm.
you- it's this pandemic has really affected both of our healths, and so it's harder for everything's harder. But
Yeah, I have to agree with you.
did I answer that question?
I think
And it's
everyone has been
difficult.
really affected by strongly affected by this, if nothing else, by the isolation and the fact that nothing's going on anymore. I think it's
There's
made
no
quite a,
social, I think, for her, and Me TV works real well. That always did, but it's hard to get her out to get exercise. And when I'm doing a Zoom meeting, I'm obviously not exercising with her, and it's frustrating. And but she last night I asked she offered to make her own salad for dinner, and I thanked her and let her do that because I had all the stuff out. And then she left that salad bowl sitting on the kitchen counter.
mm.
And I said, don't you want to eat the salad? Oh, I thought I was making this for everybody. And I no, actually that's the size bowl I normally fix a salad for her when I'm making it. But she filled it to the brim, and I said, it's great. Let's put some of it into this other bowl and you can eat part of it. And so it wasn't a flop, and it worked. And
Great.
also
Um, so Mandy, what, I think I heard you say that you would like to say one doable sentence, one clear, short, doable sentence. What keeps you from doing that?
I'm very
Stress?
stressed, and my brain goes in lots of different directions. I've been trying to get established on the right medication for 5 years since my psychiatrist had a stroke, and I'm falling through the cracks here.
God.
And I have a physician's assistant that likes to try me out on various things, thinking that putting the anxiety meds in me at bedtime is going to help me focus during the day. I don't know what that is, but a lot of the sensory factors for me, I'm cluttered. I've moved my mom into my art room because she lives in Salem, Oregon with a house up there, but my life is down here. So we've been down here since April 11th of 2020 for the pandemic. and it's a easier, it's not wearing out my car, but everything's piling up. I don't know how to sort out stuff. And so everything is distracting. And I make little to-do lists, but oftentimes they're in my head instead of actually on paper. Or I have dozens of to-do lists with half of them checked off and half of them not. So it's a personal thing. And I I don't know. When dad died, I don't have that as a good example of when I talk a lot and fast. He was patient with me, but he would take a deep breath when I was finished talking and try to cipher out what I was needing. And he was
Well, that
very
sounds
good.
good. Why don't we do that now? It sounds like you might be feeling overwhelmed. Is that sort of accurate?
Absolutely.
Okay. And what are you needing when you're in feeling overwhelmed?
I don't know. That's why I was thrilled with the title of this, because I don't communicate well with others. And there, one day last week, now, for instance, 2 Mondays ago, my mother passed out in the bathroom and hit her head on the bathroom sink and did not respond. And I had to call the ambulance, and she was in the hospital in the emergency room for about 24 hours. And I was there for 11 hours with her.
Mm.
And she got out on that Thursday. So there was a huge, that stressed me out completely. And there was one day where I had 4 different people tell me they just couldn't follow what I had said. And one was that new therapist guy, and one was my husband, and he was polite about it. And 2 others got angry with me for saying too much. And
Uh,
I get very guilty and apologetic, but still can't communicate at that point. I break down crying, and then they don't want me. The mall walker that helps me take care of my mom she has her own post traumatic stress, and they can't follow it, and I can't. I have to back up. I give too much information, but my brain is trying to process everything in order to get to the part of the conversation that I can answer your question.
okay. Well, Mandy, it's okay. So it sounds like you're feeling some overwhelm, and maybe let's give you some time to focus on what might meet that need, what you're needing in those moments. I'm kind of suspecting possibly self-compassion or self-soothing. If you're saying there's a lot of stress, you're feeling stress and it gets worse when you're stressed, I don't know, maybe explore a way for self-soothing. And I would like to now go back. I'm going to do a screen share because I would like to review this structure.
Thank you.
Sure. And then, just chime in anytime also. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry. Okay. Share the screen. Okay. Can people see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
sorry, I'm starting at the top. So here's the basics. Number one, we said observation is where we start. Observation, which is not an evaluation or a judgment. And also, when you say it seems like, remember we're pointing here, not it. So we always want to say I see, I hear, tastes like this, I don't know. And what we want to avoid is, it feels like, the word like, I feel like you're a jerk. People usually do that, and that's not a feeling. So anyways, if we use the word like, what comes after this will be a judgment usually. Okay. And also, nothing makes you feel that. It's like, It's neutral, own it, no justification needed. So it's just I hear or see or understand this. All right. They don't need to be justified, own it. Okay, so feelings. Again, like, the word like is going to turn it into a thought. Feelings have no moral value. So the thing about feeling is to own it. I feel. So I can feel furious or jealous or happy, but it's because that's what I feel. You're not making me feel that way. So I drive down the road and I see litter on the side of the road and I get furious, but I could say it makes me furious. It doesn't make me furious. I get angry because I start by making a judgment that something's wrong. and then I need to blame. And that's what makes me angry, what people get angry. However, we don't need to blame. It's okay to be furious. It's okay to have your feelings. They have no moral value. You don't need to explain your feelings or apologize for them either. That's a good thing to remember. We don't need to explain or apologize our feelings unless we're blaming someone for it. If I'm owning my feeling, I don't need to explain it. And if someone asks you to do something you don't want to do, just say, I'd rather not. I'm not comfortable. No reason necessary again. No justification, no reason, not necessary. All right, and there we go again, if feeling. So I'm feeling furious. Marshall also has a concept. It's both, there's sorry, I should back up. Giraffe and jackal. So the giraffe is the largest land mammal, and it has the biggest heart. So he explains compassionate communication as giraffe talk, and jackal is in our habitual blaming talk. All right, feeling. Yeah, and we do a feeling. Okay, no placid. Okay. And then we're on to the preference or the need. So again, it's not, I need you to do this. We distinguish a preference from a demand. It is, you're just, this is what I would prefer. And we also distinguish a request from a demand. Okay, sorry, I was sorry for splitting that thought up. It's street giraffe and street jackal. So you can see that this protocol can be very stilted. I see this, I am feeling that, I need this, would you be willing to that? It sounds very stilted. And so there is such a thing as street giraffe, meaning have the same intentions of meeting their needs and your needs. So the intention is the same, but you don't sound like a jerk. So you just say, oh, wow, are we cool? Instead of saying, you might do something like, I'm seeing that you're not looking at me. I'm feeling worried. I'm afraid that you're angry at me. I would like to hear how you're feeling now. Would you be willing to tell me how you're feeling about me now? So that would be kind of the stilted but full-blown version of NVC. But what I could say instead is, are we good? That would be just more like street giraffe, you know? Oh, that's right. Okay, so we're screen sharing. All right. The other thing we don't do, which is, I'm just going to call confirmations. And this confirmations can be a request. It can be the same thing. What did you hear me say? Or how did that sound to you? Or if you're listening, oh, I heard you say that you're anxious to get a new job. Is that right? Or you're hating your job? Confirmations to see if they received what you intended and to see if you received what they intended. It's surprising how often people just do not, are not talking about the same thing even. Okay, if there's any other questions about it, I'll just close the screen share. Okay. Yes, it's surprising that I find people having conversations like this and they're actually talking about different people. And they don't even know that they're not communicating at all. So that's why I kind of like to promote that practice of using confirmations. Huh, how did that sound? Oh, I heard this. Are you saying this? Just confirmations and just to make sure the message got there because it so often doesn't. All right. Okay, now I'm open to any comments. And you know, if anyone feels like giving an example, we can work through it. That's fun to do. Usually everybody benefits.
I'd like to comment if that's okay.
Then yeah.
I have a couple of family members that are pretty well versed in this style of communication. And last week I've used the confirmation. So I think I'm hearing you say this, or, if this is what I think I'm hearing, and, or or the bill is on the table, or I see that anything like that. And this certain family member of mine gets angry when I talk like that because he says that I'm being passive aggressive.
The term is so overused and it's always incorrectly. It's almost as bad as the word literally, which doesn't have any meaning anymore. But he says you're passive aggressive when you feedback what you're hearing.
If I say something like, like he's late a lot. So if I was to say anything, actually, but if I say, oh, I notice it's 8 o'clock, he's like, what? Well, so are you telling me I'm late? Or the confirmation one is like, I would get back to, well, I just said that. Why do you need to repeat what I just said? So I'm not sure how to, this person has anger issues, I guess, but I'd like to figure out a way to be able to communicate these things, because like I said, we're in our family, we have some experience with this, but it doesn't work on this one certain family member. Mine, he doesn't like. So that's my question.
Okay, well, I have a thought. What about if you came out and got super direct, like come out with the, I'm pissed. How does that work? Or what's the response to that?
I used to do that, and I suppose I could try that again, but it generally doesn't
Not
work.
make any difference?
Yeah, but I could try it again. Yes.
I would
Mandy?
like to share some wisdom I saw on a t-shirt for Lynn. And I don't want to offend anyone out there, but I have been able to utilize it in my long-term relationship. When a man says he's going to do something, you don't have to remind him every 6 months.
Okay.
That is passive aggressive, though.
You got to have PASH. It's a positive attitude with a sense of humor, and like with that. But if a man says he's do something, you don't have to remind him every 6 months to do it. He'll do it. So,
well, Mandy, I think that actually I think that actually is passive aggression, is when you tell someone you're going to do something and then just don't do it and wait for them to squirm around and flip out. Yeah, you broke them.
We've started having a movie night together, a family movie night, except he shows up here so late that dinner doesn't start until about 9:15, and then the movie starts after that, and then we're both up late, and then that's the passive aggressive stuff. Yes, we're doing it, but you can't make me do it on time.
And why do you let him ruin your evening?
I've loved him for 38 years, and
husband.
I've started incorporating one evening a week where I want to be as important as his singing groups that he'll go to and other stuff. It's complicated. This is not a good time to think about divorce after all these years. He loves me and he loves my mom, and so we'll do what we can. And
what about the possibility of, say, hey, we're having dinner at 8 and the movie at 9, and then just do it whether he's there or not? How would that work? That's a matter of boundaries.
I can try that. I can work on that. I'll think about that. I'm going to write that down and think about that.
Yeah, I used to. Yeah.
He's the cook in the family, and he likes to cook.
Great.
But then he goes out shopping for groceries after I've already texted him and letting him know that we have all the groceries we need for the dinner, and he still shows up at 9. So.
And how does that feel? Is it frustrating?
Oh, yes.
And what are you needing? Are you wanting like respect for your time, or?
What I know what I'm needing is I need to write down, for one, my mom's diet has changed since she was in the hospital. She also had a bladder infection.
What are you needing?
A low cholesterol and low sodium diet on top of.
Mandy, I'm going to ask you not to talk about her, but to talk about yourself instead. What are you needing?
Oh, that's part of what, until she lives in Georgia with my brother, it's all about her. That's the hard part for me. Yeah. I don't
for
know.
you. And do you need anything for yourself? You know, there are caregivers support groups.
I do. I am involved in those.
Okay,
So
good. I hope that helps.
let someone else. I'm taking up too much time on here. I just wanted to throw out that little anecdote, and
Okay.
I'd like to go back to listening and let someone else share.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you,
you,
guys.
Mandy. Lynn, did we adequately address your issue? I'm wondering, Lynn, did we get on, Lynn, did we adequately address your issue?
I heard a good suggestion that I could try.
Okay. And it would be something like, you know, just come out with a fast, short, what you're feeling or needing or both.
Okay,
Okay. Good luck.
thank you.
Thanks for sharing. I appreciate it. At the heart of all of this is listening. And I'm going to just go over some quotes about listening because it's very hard to listen and nobody does. Well, there it is. The reason is that our minds have a negativity bias for a reason. The negativity bias is that we always look for the bad in everything, every situation, and we focus on the bad. And we do that. We're wired that way because we're wired to look out for predators. And in order to, you know, so the mind is constantly running with worry and who knows what, monkey mind. And in order to listen to someone, we need to turn that off. We need to stop thinking about how to protect ourselves and focus completely on somebody else's needs instead of ours. And that's why it's difficult. That's one of the reasons it's difficult. One of the many reasons it's difficult to listen. It's a great luxury to be heard. You have to pay, I don't know what the rate is now, a shrink to listen to you, if we even have any in this county, but it's expensive to get someone to listen to you. And here are some of my quotes. We never outgrow our need to tell what it feels like to live in our own separate world of experience. We all have that deep, deep need to share what our experience is, what we're experiencing in life, what it means, what it feels like to be me. I want to share that. Unfortunately, there is no mirror need to listen to people. And so no one has that need to listen. Listening is a luxurious, rare gift when we get it. And that being the case, unfortunately, the simple failure to acknowledge what the other person is saying explains most of the conflict and friction in our lives. And acknowledgement is one of those confirmations. Are you wanting to get out of here now, or are you wanting to wait 20 minutes? Just acknowledge what they're saying. That's another confirmation, acknowledgement. Doesn't mean you agree, of course. Knowing that hearing or understanding another does not equal agreement. Being heard shapes us. If someone accurately hears what we're saying and really gets us, really gets, oh, that's my experience. It shapes us in a good way. And lack of being heard will twist us up, or being misinterpreted and misunderstood is sort of mangles our insides. It's like, wait, I didn't mean that. Being misunderstood undermines our trust in others and our trust in our own perceptions. That can be very painful and ruin relationships too, can't it? Okay. Nice to see you, PA. I remind myself, okay, this is a quote from Larry King. I remind myself every morning, nothing I say today will teach me anything. So if I'm going to learn, I must do it by listening. That's Larry King. That's funny. Nothing I say today will teach me anything. And now here's Doug Larson. Oh, I love this one too. Wisdom is the reward for a lifetime of listening when you'd have preferred to talk.
I wanted to say something, that this is a wonderful topic, and it comes after another topic. The other topic is email conversation. I had two students once who were antagonistic about something, and they had an email conversation which just went up and up and up, because their email is like throwing bombs over the fence to your antagonist. So I got them together, and that took care of it when they got together and talked to each other. So that's why this is a good topic for that.
Great, thank you. I couldn't agree with you more. Anytime, email or even worse, a text, anytime there is the slightest bit of charge in what's going on between you, if you respond with a text or an email, kiss the relationship goodbye, you're done. Yeah, that's a very poor practice. You're right. It has to be in person or at least on the phone.
One other comment.
Mhm.
I think you didn't mention the possibility of writing things down.
Mhm.
So I think if you take a piece of paper and start writing your feelings, it's probably a good exercise.
I agree. Yeah, write it down or not, whatever works for you. But yes, had that process of spending time focusing and identifying what you're feeling and needing is really valuable in itself, even if you never tell anyone about it.
Hmm.
And often I find that if I'm doing that work myself and I've clarified where I'm at, the problem goes away because the problem's all in my head anyway. That's the only place we can be is in our own heads. So. But also, yes, hopefully this will provide a structure for talking face to face.
Erin,
Yes.
it's Jane.
Hi, Jane.
I wonder if you've ever focused in your discussion on the art of asking questions,
Oh, God, that's
because
great.
that
Yes.
is how you engender people to talk,
I happen to have this sheet
and
sitting
you
right
are
here.
forced to listen. Okay?
Jane, that's hilarious. I happen to have this sheet sitting right next to me. It's called What is a Question?
Oh, fabulous.
May I
Let's go
read it?
for it.
Okay. A question is an opening to creation. It's an unsettled and unsettling issue. It's an invitation to creativity. A question is the beginning of an adventure. It's seductive foreplay. It's a disguised answer, can be a disguised answer. A question pokes and prods that which has not yet been poked or prodded. It's a point of departure. It has no end and no beginning. A question wants a playmate.
Isn't that the way to address many of these issues of communication and to require you to practice the art of listening? And I'll just disclose something. I used to be very socially awkward. And what I mean is I didn't know how to chit chat. And I finally learned that if I just started asking questions, that got me out of the fix. And I'd pick one person and I'd start asking questions and delve into deeper conversations. And that, since you're asked the question, you have to listen to the answer. And then ideally you respond appropriately to the answer. But it's a it is confrontational in the sense that you are asking a question, and many times it's a personal question. But I would love to see us have a conversation sometime on the art of questioning, because it's a specific skill, and I have found it very useful since I practiced it most of my life in operating and working with these brown bag lunches, because many times people are afraid to be the first person to ask the question. And I find it very difficult to hold back and not start asking questions to allow other people room to do that. But isn't it an effective way to to address some of these issues?
Questioning, absolutely. And Yes, and it does get you to listen. And what Rosenberg suggests is the questions be focused on feelings and needs. Oh, actually here.
In other words, how is everybody feeling about what you just heard?
Yep.
Okay. I invite everybody in the audience to respond to how you're feeling about what you just heard Erin present. And can you understand from this presentation how to apply it? So there's a generic question for the world. Hey, Molly, Molly, give me a response.
I was actually going to the chat, so I heard what you said and then went to something else. So ask your question again, please.
My question was, how are you responding to what you've heard? Do you find it helpful in how you address people? And have you had opportunity to practice these skills?
You're asking
Because
about
you are a presenter most of your time.
You're asking about the entire presentation then, not just what you just said? That's what I need
Yeah,
to
the
about.
entire presentation.
I have taken a number of NVC trainings, and I just this is a refresher to make sure I remembered it well. So I like this stuff, but I think it's often unrealistic because, as one of the people said, you have to rely on both people having goodwill, and that is not always the case. So that's my big problem with it.
So how do you deal with it when you're dealing with a person who doesn't have goodwill?
You protect yourself from them hitting you or whatever they might do, like that anger management person, and you perhaps put it in writing.
If you put an agreement in writing, if you're on the same page, that can be helpful. But it's actually not necessary if you actually really do understand what each other is saying. If you're really on the same page, it doesn't necessarily need to be committed. Always a good idea.
One thing about questions that can be a bit of a problem is if someone asks a question, they claim that they're asking a question, but they're actually simply stating their opinion as though they were asking a question. And that can be very problematic.
Can you give me an example?
Yeah, like say, for example, say someone has already decided that they don't like your opinion about something. They might say, oh, don't you think that you would be better off if you thought this way about that? That's a phrased as a question, but it's not really a question. It's an assertion. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Steve, I have a little, listening is not. I have a quick sheet, but first I want to, there's two comments in here I'll get to, but listening is not interrogating. Like, really, how much? What time did it happen? How, for facts. Listening is not advising or fixing. Well, why did you do this? I've got the answer. It's not one-upping. Well, what happened to me was worse. And listening is not educating. Well, here's what you need to do. You should look at it this way. And have you heard this? And don't you know you should be the, so don't educate. It's empathy before education. It's not denying or consoling. Oh, it couldn't have been that bad. Cheer up. It'll get better. So it isn't that. And it's not storytelling like, oh, well, that reminds me of the time when somebody else did this. And it's not sympathizing. Oh, poor you. So yes, it depends the kind of questions you ask. Yeah, and it depends on your in question. Dana Boudreau says, underlying all questions, what is your intention? And we saw a couple of intentions that were not listening. They're one-upping or whatever. Yes, Anina says, open-ended questions, yes. And those hopefully that are focused, yeah, on somewhere on feeling and needs and, whatever. Yes, the intention is the important thing. Leading questions have an agenda. Now, Robert Forns, did you want me to read this list of what questions are? Let me know. It said, could you share that quote on questioning? Let me know. I have a question. How do we feel about, I have a question. How do you feel about this generation with solely communicating through technology? Also, do you think it would affect how the recipient would comprehend what they have read? I would say Absolutely. And, you know, as I have said before, it's a terrible, it ruins relationships. You know, I don't know if people, you know, this is a good question, whether people have a lot of relationships. Maybe they have less friends. I don't really know that much about young people and what it's doing to their communication. I do have a program that I'm trying to develop, which would teach teens to be assertive, because I don't quite know how to do that. Okay. There we are. So.
Anna, did you, it's Anina, did you have a question?
I'm just, my phone keeps ringing, so I'm kind of fussing around trying to turn it off.
Okay, sorry.
I wish I had more questions, because that is my problem, is I'm always stating my opinion, you know, making statements. And so I think questions are sort of a key to more open communication, which is a statement still. So what do you all think about that statement?
I mean, a simple question like, how are you feeling today? You know, did you have a good day? Did you
I
have a
like
good experience? What?
I like somebody put out there on the chat, I caught it, that my favorite question is tell me more. And the tell me more is part of a friend from junior high school, and I reconnected on Facebook when she read my parenthetical comment that I was taking care of my mother who has Alzheimer's, because there's a stigma around Alzheimer's. And my brother is very right wing, and in Georgia, I'm not allowed to reach out to a Facebook community and say, you guys, I'm going crazy, you know, but she heard it. And we texted for 4 hours one night, I think, on and off, before we picked up the phone and spoke to each other. I hadn't spoken to her since high school. Her dad died this month a year ago, and he had 4 sisters, all of which had Alzheimer's. So she's actually planning on coming out and visiting me in August if we're visible. But she texts, tell me more. And that opens up conversation, or lets that person know that you're interested, without having to try to sort out which way you want the conversation to go. I just thought that was what, she is married to a psychologist. So maybe
No,
that's
that, I'm familiar with that technique, and it's not one of my favorites personally. Tell me more is, because tell me more is sort of like, go ahead, keep entertaining me. It's like, I didn't really listen to you, and what you said is not adequate, so you're gonna have to tell me more.
okay.
It's like, keep working to give me more details so that I can get it. Work harder to get to me. Work harder is what it's saying, because what you're doing is not working. That said,
that was when we were texting, but once we got past that into a conversation, we were both actively listening and connecting.
And
But
what is
it
your
was-
intention? And what is your intention in asking, tell me more?
I see. I wasn't asking. Someone else put out that, why don't we let the person who posted that respond?
Richard, you're on. You got to unmute.
I'm unmuted. I'm a tell me more kind of guy. If I feel confronted by someone, by something that they said, what I need is a little time to think it through. And I will say, tell me more, because it says 2 things. I'm interested, and it also forces the person who is ragging on me to get beyond the argumentation into what do you mean by that, you know, and kind of expand what they're thinking on. And oftentimes they have to stop and think too. So it kind of puts a comma in the conversation. Okay. And I do not use tell me more in conversationally, right? I use it when I'm feeling confronted.
Okay, that's a different story. Yeah, different situation. Yeah.
It can be used like a filibuster.
So, Richard, that's a different situation. And in that situation, it does make a little more sense. But if you're actually talking to someone, you would want them to know what you want to know more about. Do I have to just tell you everything? Really hilarious
Yeah,
messages.
well, like I say, I use it as a way to put a comma in a conversation, especially if I'm feeling confronted.
Okay, so when you're feeling confronted, you just say, tell me more. Another thing you can do is say, oh, ask another question. Are you angry? Were
Yeah,
you
what do you mean
upset
by
by what I
that?
did this? Ask again about, go back to feelings and needs. What were you feeling this? Were you wanting me to do
Yeah,
that?
right. Well, unfortunately, I'm not a rational being most of the time. And so I have to rely on some habits. And that's a habit I fall back into that is less destructive than others.
Yeah, we all
I
have really
personally-
terrible habits.
I personally loved it when she gave me that option because I usually feel like I have said way too much for my own self anyway, and no one wants to hear what I'm saying. So for a friend from junior high school to say, tell me more, I could explain a little bit more of where we were right then. And that's what got us together and connected. And
It was an honest invitation.
it wasn't
Mhm.
just, I wasn't at a bar with some guy trying to pick me up and tell me more and gazing off into whatever he's thinking. It was good.
It was genuine.
made me feel safe to actually spew a little bit and release for a moment, and that was very helpful. And she was the most empathetic person because 4 of her aunts died of Alzheimer's, so she knew what I was going
So
through.
what was the intention, Mandy?
We were getting to know each other after.
No, Mandy, wait a minute. What was your intention in asking her to tell me more? What was your intention?
No, she asked me
Oh,
that,
oh,
and
okay.
it made me feel completely safe.
Okay.
And
Gotcha.
we connected more so than we had in years. And she's gonna come out and visit me in on vacation in August if things go well. So that
Are you
was
happy about that?
very, very.
Great. I'm
I'm
glad to
looking
hear it.
forward
I'm
Yeah.
gonna, I have a written copy, but I don't know how to get it onto the OLLI website, but I will read these questions again about questions.
Yeah.
What is a question? It's opening to creation. Oh, I'm sorry. This is from Rochelle Myers. You might be able to find a list. Rochelle, ROCHELLE MYERS. And it's in a book called Creativity in Business. Creativity in Business. You might be able to find it online somewhere. It's open to creation. It's unsettling issue, invitation to creativity, the beginning of an adventure. A question is seductive foreplay, can be a disguised answer. Those are usually not good questions. Pokes and prods. It's a point of departure. It has no end, no beginning, and a question wants a
Erin?
Yeah.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
I feel that during this period of COVID, we have greater trouble speaking with each other, except within the household, because we are not able to have eye-to-eye contact, where most of our real communication takes place. Our words are important, but to reach into the soul of another person in a very deep conversation, you need to be able to see them and look into their eyes. And when we can look into each other's eyes, these communication problems can disappear. I feel that most of the guidance that you've given us today occurs when people need to be looking into each other's eyes, need to be making a greater effort to communicate in the first place. And in my experience in trying to use some of these methods, I have been confronted by being very formal and by deliberately trying to take the conversation to a place that person didn't want to go. So how do we encourage people to look into each other's eyes is my question.
Well, right now it's kind of tough, as we all know, and yes, that is one of the problems.
Especially with our cell phones.
Well, you know, we talked about earlier, if there's anything charged at all, don't do it on the phone or computer. It has to be, you know, you had to look into people's eyes. And you brought up a good point, which is that the vast majority of communication does not happen through words. It's physical and eye contact and all kinds of other stuff. So, and yes, we're missing all that. And that's part of the difficulty in the isolation, is we're not connecting with people as well. But, you know, that said, we're kind of pulling out. There's light at the end of the tunnel.
That's a really good thing. How many of you are ready to come out of hibernation?
Oh, yeah.
All of us.
How many of you been enjoying your hibernation?
There are some introverts, it blows my mind, and introverts that are going, oh, I'm going to go on retreat. A retreat? What could be more isolated than we are already?
We've been retreating.
Yeah.
For a long time now.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in some there's a reluctance to come back out of retreat.
Yeah.
I hope everybody in this community is inoculated.
Oh, I think it's what, 80% of over 60 have been inoculated.
It makes it a lot easier.
Oh yeah. I mean, you feel so much safer.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful. You could wish that for everybody if they had that feeling of relief from that. And it's hard to understand people who don't want it or seek it, because we know the implications of being sick are so potentially drastic. And you know, the long haulers, people who have long-term effects over time. Like I talked to someone today who said they had a friend who'd gotten it, and months later they still have lost their sense. I mean, they recovered after a week, but they still don't have their taste or smell back. I said, well, they'll lose weight because food doesn't taste very good if you can't taste it. I mean, you're not really eager to overeat.
But it felt wonderful
Yeah.
to have freedom again.
Oh, it feels fabulous. Yeah. And we have increasing degrees of freedom as the requirements come off. And you can see your kids and grandkids and,
Right.
you know, but you're still kind of reluctant to go hug somebody. You know, it's still doing virtual hugs for the most part because you're not going
That's all right. Yeah.
to give it to anybody you really care about. So it's kind of this questioning.
I'm not ready to travel back to Salem, Oregon with Mom yet, even though we are in the process of selling her house and moving her to Georgia near my brother. But Salem has times the deaths and the rate, and the state of Oregon is spiking, and oh well. Excuse me.
That's a familiar sound.
Twilight Zone?
What was that? A Mission Impossible?
Twilight Zone, wasn't it?
Twilight Zone. Yeah. I knew I recognized it from something from way a long time ago. Does anybody have any more questions? Or Erin, do you have more that you want to present?
No, I don't. I have actually one really nice, another quote that I love. Expectations are premeditated resentments. Is that a nice one?
That's a great way of putting it.
So.
So if you don't have any expectations, you can never be disappointed, right? In theory.
And just because I expect you to be polite doesn't mean you're obligated to do anything. My expectation has nothing to do with you.
Uh-huh. I know. So it's been fun having you all here. I thank you all for coming. And next week, we're going to be talking about Humboldt County and the U.S. Supreme Court, 2 local cases that shape federal Indian law, with Kucha Risling Balding, who is HSU Department of Native American Studies Associate Professor. Now she just got tenure, so we have to fix that title, and she's Department Chair. Tribes in Humboldt County have long been at the forefront of exercising sovereignty and maintaining their cultural, spiritual, and treaty rights. This presentation will provide a historical overview of two key Supreme Court cases featuring local tribes and how this shaped current tribal law and policy throughout the U.S. She's very bright, very fun, and very well informed. You'll really enjoy her. So again, Erin, thank you ever so much. We appreciate it.
It's fun.
Been
Thank
great.
you.
And we look forward to seeing you all again next week.